Hello and welcome back to our channel, the channel for those who want to excel at exams, work and languages. Today we're going to tackle a topic that for a lot of people is kind of a lifesaver, okay? Because we're going to understand how to recognize the thinking styles of people that you work with in order to assign the right tasks to the right people and not feel that sense of annoyance that comes from having the wrong people in charge of the wrong thing. Take this scenario. You are in charge of a project and you are working with two people, Beth and Damon. Now, Beth is a person that has a lot of skills, and so you've decided to assign her a certain series of tasks that are related to her expertise. Now, what happens though? That Beth, even though it is her expertise, keeps asking you tons of questions about how to do every single task that you assign to her. On the other side, you have Damon, and Damon is an amazing person, but during this project he keeps asking you, are you sure that this is the best way to approach it? Why don't we do that thing? I think that this thing should be better done in this other way. And this puzzles you a little bit because you are in charge of this project and it seems like you are doing someone else's stuff with Beth and you are being questioned all the time by Damon. Now, why does this happen? Because everyone has a different way to approach the world, okay? And this is pretty obvious, but today I'm going to analyze three styles that are three of the thinking styles that Sternberg talks about. And in a previous video, I think there could be the preview here probably, in a previous video we spoke about the forms of government that you can have. So monarchic, anarchic, oligarchic, hierarchic that help you a lot, for example, in time management. And not only. In this video, I wanted to tackle the functions of government. So going back to that theory that compares the way we process information to a government, we are going to understand that there are three functions in our government and that all of us tend to prefer one function rather than the other. Only by understanding what you prefer and what others prefer will you be able to coordinate your resources and get the best out of each one. Now, there are three functions. The first one is legislative. Now, if you think about a government, what do you see? You see that, for example, the legislative part is that one that's in charge of making the law, creating new laws, okay? So that's the legislative one. Executive will be in charge of carrying out all the laws that have been made, so implementing them. And the judicial part will be the one that talks about evaluating if it is working, if it is not, what to change, what to improve. Now, in every team, you will notice that there may be people that tend to be more legislative, more executive, or more judicial. What does that mean? A legislative person is a person that comes up with a lot of ideas usually. So I'll tell you some of the main traits, no? So they come up with a lot of ideas and they like innovating, they like creating, they like taking charge of things and giving a start to new projects, new things. And this is an amazing skill to have. And of course, we need to pay attention because if someone is only purely legislative, they may struggle in the other phases, for example, implementing the ideas that they had. So we need to be aware of where we stand, because if we are super legislative, and I know someone in my team, for example, that is, then we need to focus on forcing ourselves also to develop the other sides of us. But the person that's legislative will be an amazing asset in terms of coming up with new ideas, creating new things, innovating, and this will be very, very helpful in a team. On the other side, what do we have? We have the executive person. Now, executive person in this case means what? It's the person that represents that executive side of the government that implements the new laws. So the executive person is the one that will be usually very good at following procedures, implementing things, creating procedures, so making sure that there are clear steps in order to get where you want. The judicial one on the other side will be that person that focuses a lot on understanding what works, what doesn't. Their mind is constantly thinking about, okay, this thing works, this thing I would like to change. In order to improve, we need to do that. This one wasn't good enough, and so on. Now, in the example that we did before, what happened? That you are the legislative person, okay? So you are the one that is annoyed at Beth and Damon. Why? Because Beth asks a lot of questions, okay, about how to do every single step. Why? Probably she has an executive part, an executive style that's very, very developed. And when someone has an executive side that's extremely strong, unless they have already the clarity on how to do everything, they tend to ask tons of questions about how to take care also of the small details, okay? So it's not that she doesn't know what she needs to do most of the times, but she's not sure about how you want it done. And an executive person tends to ask for confirmation about all the things that she, in this case it was a Beth, is not sure about. So what can you do in that case? In that case, you should give very clear principles to the executive person so that they, on one side, know that they can make mistakes, so that you don't need to give them confirmation for everything, unless you want, and then in that case to tell them otherwise. On the other side, that they know what principles to keep in mind in order to act. And that needs to be clear for them, because if they can't see your vision, they will not be able to implement it. On the other side, you have Damon, and Damon is a judicial person, and the reason why he's asking why don't we do that, why don't we do this way, and so on, is not that he's necessarily questioning you, but maybe it's just that his mind works like that. If he's very judicial, maybe you tell him a project, and as a legislative person, I'm very legislative, so that's why I've asked you to be a legislative today. As a legislative person, when you have any idea, you're pretty enthusiastic usually about it. You're like, okay, we could do that, we could do that. And maybe your judicial colleague will be like, are you sure that works? Or how can we do that? Because they're already thinking about how to improve it, how to make it better. Will it work? Will it not work? How can I do? And that doesn't mean that they don't believe in your idea. Actually, if they're considering it, probably they like the idea. It's just that their way of processing information is a way that requires them to see, okay, what can I do better? What do I need to discard? It's their modus operandi. You just need to accept it, because it's not something that you can just change, okay? Now, you are legislative. It's not that you're perfect at all, okay? What is the problem that the legislative person has at times? Is that they come up with a lot of ideas, but they struggle in the implementation phase most of the times, unless they learn some strategies to do that. So for example, what happens is that maybe you have ideas and you expect others to just see what you are seeing that is not real and created yet the way you see it. So as a legislative person, you need to remember that, first of all, having an idea is very different from implementing it. So you need to be willing to listen to the other parts. A great team is a team in which everyone's strength is taken into account. If an executive person asks a lot of questions, you need to understand, are they asking because they are unsure, or are they asking because I wasn't clear with that, if you are the legislative one? If you are the executive one and the legislative person tells you, listen, but why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? As an executive person, ask yourself to be also flexible enough to see if that thing can be implemented. Judicial people, well, they are there in order to support. So if you're legislative and they're judicial, appreciate that they are focusing on seeing how to implement, how to improve, and so on. Then, as a judicial, what can you do yourself? You can think, okay, maybe I can show support first and then give new ideas. So everyone can find different strategies to tone that style down when it is too strong. But the first step is to understand that we can be different. And that doesn't mean necessarily that we are wrong. When we work on any project at work, we have to collaborate with other people. I mean, most projects, okay, maybe not any project, but most projects. And observing what others are, understanding what we are, will help us to do what? To coordinate our resources. I know that in my team, for example, I have a person that's extremely judicial. And at times that clashes a bit with my enthusiasm of a legislative. And, oh, we could do that, oh my God. And it's like, but have you thought about that? How do you do that? Are you sure that that will work? And initially I would take it personally almost, like, okay, but why don't you ever like my ideas? Why are you not as innovative as I am? The reality is that when he is telling me that, it's just that he's processing the idea and saying, okay, how can I implement it? When you have someone that's executive, value them, because having clear procedures in a team makes the work much simpler. So teaching them how to create procedures and add to that the flexibility of realizing that in certain situations you need to change some of the rules, that's very important too. So getting to understand your style and understanding other people's styles will be the best way to work together as a team. And when you learn, the same kind of approach will happen. Because, for example, in this case, I made the example in which you are the manager of this project and you find yourself with different styles. But at times, you are the one being managed by a boss, by a professor, by a teacher, and you need to understand that the different style that the person has will affect their evaluation of you. So you need to understand, okay, how can I make myself a bit more executive, for example, if that's what I need in that moment? How can I make myself a bit more judicial? These are skills that you can develop. But in order to develop them, you need to understand your full cognitive profile. You need to understand, okay, I am legislative. Am I monarchic, anarchic, oligarchic, hierarchic? What scope do I have? What function? What level? In terms of cognitive styles, am I global analytical, visual verbal? So all these things and so much more come into account in the moment in which we analyze our profile. Once you understand what your profile is, what can you do? You can tweak the things that are not needed in that way in that moment so that you can get the best results, also collaborating with people or being evaluated by people that have a different style from yours. So if you want to understand what your style is, get in touch. We're going to provide you with an assessment that you can take in order to understand better how you work. And once you understand how you work, then at that point we can make a plan in order to implement all the things that you need according to what you do. Thank you for watching. Feel free to get in touch. I can't wait to see you in the next video, and make sure you don't get too upset at people that have a different style from yours.